God is good, and with each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This is the Nathan Napalm channel, and if you are new here, please consider subscribing, especially if you're interested in Pantheon related content on our march to launch. Today, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about the actual design, the philosophy behind it, and how they have grown this particular area of Faerthale from concept art all the way through to finish, and specifically about this old wood tree and how it was brought to life, information from the July 2019 newsletter. And we're going to discuss that a little bit. But before we get to that, real quick, because in my video yesterday, which was my first video about the July newsletter, I actually forgot to mention something that is very important, and that was the intro to this newsletter. I'm going to read that to you because it's really exciting, okay? So here's what's said. Working on a project as time-consuming and encompassing as Project Faerthale has been a unique challenge that has strengthened our resolve and honed our skills. And we are grateful to all of you for pushing us to be our best. The real payoff for our team will be when we get to fully reveal all that we have been working on to the community at large and welcome our backers to begin testing it in earnest. But this month's newsletter is in no small part a precursor to that unveiling. So that's great news, guys, because what they're trying to say is they're getting close, baby. Things are coming together, and they're getting to a point where they're about ready to unveil it, and we'll get to see a lot in streams and getting back into testing, so it's very exciting. Now, let's move on to the subject at hand. In this particular part of the newsletter, they're talking about that a lot of us, we kind of have some sort of understanding as far as how a game is made, at least to some degree, but they wanted to kind of peel it back and show their way of developing and kind of give us a little bit of an understanding as to the philosophies behind how they designed this world. And in particular, in this one, is the old wood trees that are found in Faerthale. So according to this article, before they even have a sketch, the world building process starts with the lore, okay? And as you know, if you follow this channel a lot, the lore is literally saturated in everything in this game. So the lore for old wood would be, in a world of very old things, the trees of old wood are truly ancient, but they are no longer in as great a number as they once were, and the wide strip is all that was left when the elves founded Faerthale. The old wood growths are immeasurably tall, exceptionally wide, and appropriately spaced apart from each other. So, in order for them to meet that lore from a design perspective, they first of all wanted it to be at a different scale than a normal tree, of course. From that description, you don't just want a standard tree that is a different color or tint. Okay, so the other trees that are found in Terminus may have the same detail density, but they aren't the same sculpting that they use for this story tree, right? This old wood trees that are so important to the lore and to this particular area of Faerthale. So they began doing some sketches on what would these trees look like, began running it through the ringer at Visionary Realms until they finally decided upon this one. Mainly, they said, because of its interesting root structure, its winding kind of nature, and the huge width of the canopy up top. So then they move on to actually getting this in the game, right? So getting the polygons together, they had to kind of, as they were developing that, as they were trying to turn that sketch into actual 3D art, there was a couple of adjustments that had to be made, and then it was getting in the detail, the size of this thing and getting enough detail in this thing to make it look really interesting and real, and then the actual root structure to make it look really cool, right? And then actually designing in such a way so that they could perch these trees on rocks or ledges in different environments within this section of Faerthale. And then they broke this into several pieces so they could kind of mix and match and make some different looking trees. So you got the root base, which is separate. It can be rotated, it can be scaled. You got the trunk, which can be rotated. You got the branch structures, which can be, changed and rotated and mixed up. And then you have the plug-in root ground assets as needed. And then you have the vines as needed. And then they talk about that a root kit, like a plug-in, began to take shape, which kind of allows us to extend down a surface, allowing hero tree areas by a camp, for instance, they say, to be set, dressed, and stand out for players to make it look unique and cool. The root kit ended up being its own set of pieces to be used throughout the world, so they're not going to be discussing that in more depth today. Now, I want to stop there because that's the interesting thing that I'm always talking about when I'm talking about Project Faerthale and how getting this done is actually going to cause the other zones in the world to be done so much faster. Because you notice right here, they actually dropped us a bean because they said that this rootkit that they designed it specifically originally intent for this particular tree, right? But however, with that kit they've designed, it's flexible enough for them to mix and match it and use it in different assets throughout the world of Terminus. So, and trust me, this isn't the only little kit for designing environments and things like that. There are plenty of them within designing and developing and programming this game that they, because of Faerthale and getting it to that minimum caliber of launch, they're making things like this, which makes they can mix and match and put in other places in the world. And once again, this is a unique tree, so I'm not saying they're going to take this tree and copy paste it around the world. This is different. This is a kit that they have a lot of flexibility with, that they can use in various areas, and it looked totally different. And these particular trees still look unique, even though their roots are using the same kit. Hopefully that makes some sense to you, but basically, in layman terms, that just makes it easier and way quicker than sitting there and modeling every single piece of environment. Typically, a developer will make different kits and different things so that they can change it enough, mix it up enough to where it does look different, and then they can use it in different parts, which makes the game run smoother. For one thing, than hand modeling every single blade of grass, the game wouldn't run, okay? So anyway, moving forward, then this particular trees enter what they call the benchmark image. And this kind of helps inform everyone as to the true nature of the trees. So they needed a big bend in the trunk with a potential trunk alternative using the same primary asset, but also bent to create a less distinct shape. Now the branches need to be fewer and larger while continuing to provide a large canopy cover overhead, and they ended up doing about 3 different branch types, which we're going to cover in a second. With the gray box and render approved, they went on to the high-res sculpt phase, which just so happens to be this part that I'm going to show you here. As they're creating things, they go on to say, they always have reference, okay? They always keep a reference to compare with. And they talk about the choice to add knots into this sculpt was based on some older cypress and olive trees that they were looking at. And in this video that I'm showing here, you can kind of see them developing this tree and sculpting it and putting all these pieces on it. It looks so freaking cool, man. And it's really awesome to be on the level that we're getting to see things like this, okay? I don't know if you understand how exciting this really is, but seeing that the world is coming together in detail, they're getting rid of placeholders, and they're beginning to actually use their own assets. This is super exciting, guys. This is really big, and I can't wait till we get to see more, because of course they're just giving us a little sample with this particular type of tree. Now, moving on from that point, they then go on to detailing the base, which is actually, they say, a task to deal with the inside of these bases was hard. So since a player can walk inside of these, because the tree is so huge, as shown in the picture earlier, the interior had to be sculpted up as well. So, you know, obviously going in, it needs to look nice in there too. So they made it so that it could be placed by itself for max reuse. Now the final tree sculpt, the trunk and base were dealt with separately so they could spin them and get a different looking tree. And from here, the trees go on to a low-res mesh creation, the UVs, the texturing, the game and integration, just as any other asset in the game would be. Now from there, they need to go into the branches and the leaves that adorn the tree. And this is where it gets interesting again. So as they say in the newsletter, Project Faerthale has allowed them to tackle issues which had never been dealt with in the game before. So what they ask you to do is take a second and think about all the different trees and all the different games you've ever played. Up till now, Pantheon never had an actual finalized tree. Everything that you've seen so far in the streams, in the pictures, as far as the trees are concerned, in Avenir's Pass or Throne Pass, have been temporary asset store placeholders, and that blows my mind. They looked pretty good. I was okay with those trees. I actually remember thinking, that looks really cool. They're doing a good job. So those were just placeholders, guys. So during this time of development that they've been behind the curtains, gave them the time they needed to develop pipelines that enabled them to create something which facilitates non-destructive creation, efficient rendering, results in automated busy work. And they want to point out the game's approach to trees slightly differently than a movie might. On a movie, you might render every single leaf at max quality and it will only add time to the final render, but not hurt the way the movie is viewed. For a game, though, they have to place place many leaves upon a single branch network and then render that entire network as a single image. They call those branch networks fronds or cards. And the goal is to get the most out of as little as possible in terms of what the user is required to render in real time, and that's for performance. So then they go into all the programs that they use for the leaves and for the res models and texturing and all that kind of thing, which I'm not going to get into in this. But of course, at the end of using Maya and Substance Painter and ZBrush and all these different tools, of course, at the end it has to go into Unity for the final test. And then they go on to say that although that seems like many steps for a tree, right, they have front-loaded development on the pipeline in order to automate the grunt work. And because of that pipeline, the time they spend can be directed at the actual creative task of bringing from 2D art to 3D game ready assets. And the core of this process is non-destructive, which means they can change that one awesome leaf, do a rebake, and it will automatically populate to all the branches and in-game within about 2 minutes. So it's pretty cool. This also means that they could fully replace the leaf that it started with and get a completely different looking frond. That's when they go more in depth with that, with the actual high-res leaf models. And you can just see from this picture here that, I mean, that's a leaf, right? It's a leaf. It looks good though, looks really good and pretty detailed. I mean, more detailed than I need, to be honest with you, so they're definitely going the extra mile there. And the quality of this, guys, as I'm showing these images, I just want you to realize this is a tree. These are branches and these are leaves, okay? World building is very important to this game, okay? And to make you feel immersed and to make you look around and say, wow, and make you really feel like you're in this world, and this world means something, it's important, it has to be developed with love. And we can see that in these images. That's the biggest takeaway from this, okay? So take a second as I babble on to just look at the detail that they're putting into this, and you can kind of see what I mean when I say that the lore and the world building and the actual environment itself just means a lot to this game. On any topic that I cared about in an MMO, it seems as though Visionary Realms has locked onto it and they've got it in very capable hands and everything is looking very good, and I'm very impressed with this demonstration over a tree. Some people say it's a tree, you know, and I understand why some people may feel that way, but the point of this is, this entire thing and explaining it, I believe, was for us, the community, to realize the amount of love going into every piece of detail in the game, so that you will have fun exploring it, it will be a unique experience, and they want you to know how much they care about creating this immersive environment. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today, and if you didn't check out my video about the spell effects from the newest newsletter and the animations and the visual effects that we got to see, that was posted yesterday, so go check that out on my channel. Of course, I have a playlist with all my Pantheon content. I have over 100 different videos about Pantheon Rise of Fallen, so I got plenty for you to binge watch. But guys, until next time, and by the way, next time we're going to cover this Brad McQuaid interview and start breaking it apart. I'm going to start that tomorrow, and so I'll see you then. But until then, God bless and happy gaming. Please listen to what I say. I've been making videos all day. My friends all say I'm it's a video buffet, you can even hit replay. But please just subscribe, I can't even describe being part of my tribe. I'll even offer you a prize, but just please just subscribe and hit the bell notification too.